Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Here.
Mr. Villano?
Here.
Mr. Calder's absent. Mr. Baffardi?
Here.
3 present, 1 absent.
We have a quorum. I'd like you all to rise for a Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Marco.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will dispense with my report because we have a number of things on the agenda tonight, but I would like to make one comment. We have a 3-member board tonight. One of our members is out, brings it down to 3, so we do have a quorum, but it should be understood in order for something to pass, all 3 would have to vote in favor of something, because 2 to 1 would not become a majority of what would be the total of a 5-member board. So I just wanted to make that clear. We have a proclamation tonight, a letter of appreciation. Mr. Lamore is going to do the presentation.
All right, this is from Town of Rotterdam. Dear January 28, 2015. Dear Peggy, I heard that's what she'd rather be called. On behalf of the town board of the Town of Rotterdam, it is with our sincere gratitude for your 29 years of service. Your dedication to serve and support the senior residents of Rotterdam Junction through your tireless work at the West Rotterdam meal site is acknowledged and recommended by this board, or commended by this board. This occasion provides us with an opportunity to recognize and reflect upon the contributions made by all the persons who support and serve our senior population. Only through our caring for each other does our society grow. Once again, please accept our appreciation for the excellent work that you've done at the meal site. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely signed, Harry C. Baffardi, Supervisor, Town of Rotterdam. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Peggy, can you just give that to Cindy? Thank you so much.
Next, we have a presentation by Shelman High School. This is an annual presentation that we go through the SUPA program sponsored by Shelman High School that is in conjunction with Syracuse University. When they do a study for the town, they take on an area of interest, do a report for us, and this is something that I look forward to every year because it has such an impact on the town. These are always well-done studies. They're always very well received, and it brings an awful lot of social impact to this community. So I'd like Ms. Ryder to present.
You ready? Hello, my name is Nick Bird. This is the rest of the Syracuse University Public Affairs class from Shelman High School. We're here to present to you the findings from the survey that we conducted this semester, and we hope you find the results as useful as we did.
We conducted a survey to determine the water fees and infrastructures of municipalities in Schenectady County and across New York State along I-90 and I-87. We used the results in comparison with Rotterdam in order to assess the effectiveness of current policies and to develop new ones.
Along the I-87 and I-90 corridor, we decided to contact 32 municipalities, 8 of which were in Schenectady County. The remaining 24 municipalities were within 12 counties in New York State, of which we contacted 2 per county. To contact these municipalities, we used the telephone method with non-random cluster sampling.
This survey was designed by Shelmont High School's Public Affairs 101 class in cooperation with representatives from the Town of Rotterdam Water Services Department. The intent of this survey is to compare water rates and infrastructures in various municipalities to help better serve the Town of Rotterdam.
Okay, so while designing our survey, we had several variables to consider. The variables chosen were based on the demographic information provided by the 2010 U.S. Census data. Our first variable was population size, which included a range of 25,001 to 30,000 people. And our second variable was the municipality's proximity to major interstates, including I-90 and I-87.
The sample population is representative of the target population, which supports the accuracy of this survey. 28% of municipalities surveyed fall into a population range of 25,001 to 30,000, like Rotterdam. All municipalities surveyed were along I-87 or I-90, and 4 municipalities were in Schenectady County.
It is worth noting that a significant portion of the respondents were unable to complete the survey fully. However, a majority of the surveys were completed to their fullest extent, and they were completed by town government officials. So therefore, a generally unbiased and fair representation is reflected in the survey results. On the screen now, you will see a copy of the blank survey that was distributed to all of the municipalities. The first section up at the top focused on the demographics of the municipality and its variables. The second focused on the municipality's water rates, while the last section, the third one, focused on the municipality's water infrastructure.
Okay, so the first question we asked on our survey was how the municipalities charge their businesses for their use of water, and we found that 72% of the municipalities surveyed charge their businesses through a metered method instead of other method or fixed rate methods.
Another area that we studied was how various municipalities charge their residents for water, and 61% of the municipalities use the metered method. However, in Rotterdam, we have a fixed rate, so in that aspect, we're different from various municipalities.
Of the municipalities asked, 67% said yes to having a preventative maintenance system, while 33%, including Rotterdam, said that they did not. Of the 67% that said yes, 39% said they had it on hydrants, 39% said they had it on water mains, 39% on valve replacement, and 33% on valve exercising and maintenance. However, Rotterdam does not have any systems in place currently.
Out of all the municipalities surveyed, 67% said that they had a water tank maintenance program in place, including Rotterdam, so we're on track with most of the other municipalities that were surveyed. This program is for repainting, refilling, and repairing the water tanks.
Right, so the next question that we asked was, how old is your water infrastructure in your municipality? We found that Rotterdam falls in 61 to 70 years old. As you can see, us on the older side, which means more maintenance will have to be done.
For this question, we asked respondents how many repairs have occurred in their municipality's water mains in the past 5 years. Results showed that 72% of respondents needed 10 or more repairs, and 28% did not answer. Currently, the town of Rotterdam has had more than 10 repairs needed in the last 5 years. And also, during this past summer, we had 5 major water main breaks within 2 weeks.
So this graph shows a comparison of the annual water rates of municipalities we surveyed in Schenectady County. We surveyed Rotterdam, Niskayuna, Glenville, and Scotia, and the rates displayed were calculated according to the average amount of water used in the town of Rotterdam in 2014. The black bar represents the business rate, while the gray bar represents the residential rate. And as you can see, the business rate for the town of Rotterdam is significantly lower than any other business rates in Niskayuna or Glenville.
Similar to the previous graph, this graph also shows a comparison based on the average water use in the town of Rotterdam for businesses in black and residents in gray. So again, as you can see, this one shows how Rotterdam is significantly lower. The difference with this graph is with all the municipalities that we surveyed in New York State similar to Rotterdam on the I-90 and I-87 corridor.
We would like to thank the town supervisor, Harry Baffardi, for providing us with this project, and really through this project giving us the opportunity to learn about government and how it operates. We would also like to thank you, the town board, for listening to this presentation. And finally, we would like to thank Ian Bonthron, the senior water treatment operator of Rotterdam, and Clark Collins, the town water consultant, for giving us information throughout the project.
Hello. So, the Syracuse University Project Advanced Public Affairs class would like to thank you for providing us with the opportunity to research and really come up with a solution for the societal problem that exists in the town of Rotterdam. So, for the town of Rotterdam to comply with current and future water demands, a serious change has to be made to the aging infrastructure in our town.
Water main breaks have the potential to negatively affect the health of the citizens of Rotterdam. This is because a deficiency of clean water can cause many different sanitation issues, including unclean restrooms, an inability to properly prepare food, and a lack of good hygiene. Water main breaks may also limit citizens' right to economic opportunity. This is because if the town of Rotterdam cannot guarantee access to clean water, they may have to deny prospective businesses. Also, many current businesses must close when they don't have access to clean water.
Due to water main breaks, this created many problems for residents in Rotterdam and businesses. This is because water infrastructure is outdated. Due to the inability to water supply, the town has not been able to allow new businesses and residents into the area. The water system cannot handle the increasing of water through the years of 2011 and 2012. Clark Collins provided us with evidence saying last year they wanted to build a bottling plant and needed roughly 1 million gallons a day. But this was currently inefficient. We couldn't guarantee the amount of water. Because of this, we provided them with enough water that the business of Glenville received it. Also, another quote is, over the past 20 years, we had 6 major breaks on this line, and 3 times we have lost our water supply to the eastern end of Rotterdam. 3 of the breaks have been in the last 4 years, so that should tell us that they are coming more frequently.
This picture you see here is a picture of the most recent break, which was this past 14th of January, where a dozen citizens lost water use. And this picture was what happened over the summer in the town, where there was 4 major breaks to the town's main infrastructure, where over 20,000 residents lost water use for 18 hours.
Some causes of the problem, we do have an aging infrastructure because our current water infrastructure was constructed 60 years ago for a much smaller town. Since then, the demand for water has increased because the town of Rotterdam has grown residentially as well as commercially. And to quote Clark Collins, when you put off certain improvements, those costs keep increasing, and because of this, we don't have the funds to make current improvements. Had Rotterdam kept up with the inflation rate, the flat rate would currently be $183.93 as opposed to what it is now, which is much lower.
Our proposed policy is that the Rotterdam Town Board will require the Department of Public Works to provide funds to the Water Department for the installation of a leak detection system in Water Districts 3, 4, and 5. A leak detection system is a service which is good for 10 years. The pipes are inspected with acoustics and helium for leaks.
So these are some benefits and costs of our policy. So one benefit would be that a more reliable water infrastructure would be able to make the town to be able to support more businesses. Residents will not inconveniently lose water while breaks are occurring or being repaired. Current businesses will be able to operate properly with constant access to water, and the town will not have to deal with expensive and time-consuming emergency water breaks. And some costs of the policy is a leak detection system will cost $86,520, and it is not a one-time expense or conclusive solution, as the company suggests an additional inspection once every 10 years.
To measure the potential effectiveness of this policy, we studied the cost of the town water infrastructure repairs over the past few years. You can see here in the blue is the historical data for the cost of the town water infrastructure repairs. In the yellow is the projected forecast without policy implementation, and the red is the projected forecast with policy implementation. As you can see, Rotterdam has seen a dramatic surge in the cost of its water infrastructure repairs. In 2013, it went up to $90,000 per year, and in 2014, it was $140,000 per year, which was up from 2011 and 2012, which hovered between $40,000 and $50,000 per year. Without the policy implementation, excuse me, can you go back one slide? Thank you. Without the policy implementation, we forecast that the town water infrastructure repairs will continue to be high. And then with the leak detection system, we forecast that those rates will return back to their original 2011-2012 rates. Because of the leak detection system will identify, locate, and allow for the repair of leaks before they escalate to emergency water main breaks, decreasing the number of breaks each year. Since there will be fewer breaks, the cost of repairs will diminish, and the town will not have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars addressing emergency water issues.
Okay, so overall, the policy's benefits outweigh the costs, and we believe that it can be an effective solution to the problem in the town of Rotterdam. 39% of the municipalities surveyed have a water main preventative program, and they all said in their opinion section of the survey that it was valuable to their municipality. So we ask that you please consider an implementation of a leak detection system.
Once again, we want to thank Mr. Buffardi for giving us this project and helping us learn more about government through how to make a policy and how to present and stuff like that. And we'd also like to thank the town board for hearing us out and taking into consideration to implement this effective policy. And certainly, but not least, we'd like to thank Mr. Clark Collins and Mr. Ian Bonthron for really helping us through this whole scenario and helping us and showing us how Rotterdam operates with their use of water.
At this time, we'll take any questions you guys have.
Where is the company from?
In your research on all of this, did you find that when they did replace, when the water main breaks occurred, did they repair the damage or did they replace with something new?
I'm not quite sure about that, ma'am. I do know that when those water main breaks do happen, it's an emergency situation, and so the town has to spend a lot more money than it would if it was a preventative measure.
Correct. And largely, it's a patch and fix situation. It's not a repair of the general problem itself.
In these entities that end up going out and having the studies done for leak detection, did you find any in Schenectady County that have done this?
It will mention that in your survey report, I believe. Do you mind if I pick up a copy of that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
If you go to the appendix section, you will find that it lists all the municipalities' answers to each question. It's this one here with the sideways chart. And I believe that was question... The functioning leak detection system was section 3, question 2. Scotia has one. Niskayuna has one. And Glenville does not.
Thank you.
How long would it take to install that?
It's about a 20-day process. An outside company comes in and does tests with helium and acoustics to detect any leaks.
Oh, so they just go through the piping, or they have one set spot they go in and it just runs it through?
I'm not quite sure about that.
They do it through
Can you
multiple
repeat the
places.
question?
If they implemented the system leak detection system in one spot, or how they implemented the system.
I would just like to comment that I found it interesting that you thanked us for giving you the opportunity to learn about government. I would like to thank you for giving government the opportunity to learn about ourselves through the research that you've done. It's certainly been an interesting study and very well done. I would also like to add that I know she doesn't often take credit for this, but Ms. Ryder, Karen Ryder, who's taught this program for a number of years, my adult children actually attended this program through Syracuse University themselves. And she's done this for a number of years and does an outstanding job with not only providing a program for students, but she also does a great public service for the town of Rotterdam and other places that she does research for. So thank you very much for all your help.
We're going to ask you to bear with us because our class was divided on what we thought we should do. Half of them wanted a leak detection and the other half was adamant about one other one. So we decided to show you the two policies so that you would have a couple of options. Can you pull it up, Sim?
Thank you.
You're gonna be fine.
All right, so as Ms. Ryder said, our class was divided on the policy that we wanted to propose to the town board. So a group of individuals standing up here decided that the installation of a water metering system would be the best policy to propose. In order for that to happen, we had to first identify the problem the town was facing. So if we could switch. The problem that the town's facing, we both have the same wording here, is that oh, here we go. So in order for the town of Rotterdam to comply with current and future water demands, improvements to the water infrastructure are necessary to guarantee access to a quality water system.
There are a couple of negative impacts associated with the current system. Low levels in the water towers may hinder firefighting efforts when they're most needed, and it even affects citizens in their daily lives because when the mains break, people can't brush their teeth or shower or even do something as simple as go to the bathroom. And cooking and even drinking water becomes a huge hazard.
The businesses currently in the town of Rotterdam need water in order to operate and cannot remain open without water, such as restaurants. As a town, we cannot expand because our water system cannot handle a higher demand on water. Major businesses cannot move in because we can't guarantee water to anyone who wants to come in.
When we talked with Ian Bontron, Senior Water Treatment Operator, on November 19, 2014, he stated that all 4 of the wells running at full capacity cannot keep up with water demands from residents and businesses. This means that there is no room for expansion in the town if the wells can barely keep up with the demands. If just one well fails, the whole town's water supply may be jeopardized.
Here you can see 2 pictures. There we go. All right. So this was over the summer. As you can see, June 30th in that series that we mentioned. As you can see, the damage that it causes is extensive. And then this one was just a few days ago on January 14th. That is a water main break that occurred. So as you can see, this is a real problem in our town. And when this does happen, there's a lot of damage that is associated with it.
The major causes of our problems are the following. The water system was designed in 1955. The town development has expanded westward, which wasn't the ideal direction. The water system has an aging infrastructure and an increase of water use, which it runs at capacity during the summer, and it also has a lack of funding. The policy we are proposing is that the Rotterdam Town Board will require the water department and building inspector to allow business owners and residents in the town of Rotterdam's water districts 3, 4, and 5 to have their water metered.
So we have many benefits to the policy. The metering policy will lead to greater income, which can be put to use in the water department to make any future improvements that are necessary. We also predict a lower annual water consumption. Now that water bills reflect usage, we are hoping that consumers will become more conscientious, which will also lead to fewer main breaks. And lastly, we have more accurate billing. The metering method is most fair because consumers only pay for the water which they use. And this especially benefits senior citizens and those on fixed incomes because they tend to use less water than an average household. And as previously mentioned, metering water is an opportunity for Rotterdam to generate revenue. This chart indicates that Rotterdam currently charges significantly less money for water than other municipalities that we surveyed.
This is a graph forecasting the effects of our policy. We predict that it will fully take effect by the year 2017. Here you have the water consumption over the last few years. This dashed line shows what we predict the increased water will be in the town of Rotterdam, or increased usage just based on natural growth. And this is the predicted decrease in water use based on people being more conscientious about the water that they use because they're being billed directly based on what they use. So there are a few costs to this. The largest cost would be the actual installation of the meters themselves. It's about $325 to $350 per unit. It should be noted that Niskayuna did this, and they bonded the money out to implement the water system. And by the time they were trying to repay the bond, the funds that they brought in, the extra funds that they brought in because of the policy helped to pay for that, so there was no actual cost to the residents. And then many people oppose change if they're going to have to pay more for their water, so that would be kind of a resistance from the actual residents of the town. So the policy will increase the amount of income and allow the water department to maintain, update, and improve the water system more often, more efficiently, and more effectively. And then by decreasing the quantity of water used in the town of Rotterdam, the current system will be able to operate more effectively because there will be less stress on the system.
So we believe that this policy is feasible because similar policies are already in place in many municipalities across New York State. And if this policy is accepted, we believe it'll be fully implemented by 2017. And the cost of this policy and potential resistance from residents are the largest threat to the feasibility of this policy. Again, we would like to thank Supervisor Buffardi for the project and the opportunity to learn about government, the town board for listening to our proposal, and Ian Bonthron, the chief water operator, and Clark Collins, the water consultant for the town of Rotterdam, for helping us gather information about the extent of this project. At this time, we would now like to take any questions.
What do Niskayuna and Glenville pay on an average?
We don't have the specific data for their...
Be in the report.
Is it in the survey?
Mhm.
So you have that available So this chart kind of shows you
If you see, this is a chart showing what
This
other
is the town of
municipalities
Glenville
pay for the same amount of water.
So the town of
What
Glenville.
is Niskayuna and Glenville?
Niskayuna is this bar right here, and Glenville is this one right here.
And then
And
Rotterdam.
then Rotterdam is the first column here. So it's significant.
This is a household.
That's per unit.
The blacker businesses, you're looking at the.
You're looking at the gray ones.
Right.
You're looking at the gray ones.
Rotterdam, $750.
That's for, the gray is for...
The gray is for residents.
Right.
Yes.
The shadows throwing it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want to point to where they are, because the shadows.
Rotterdam's this right here. And then Scotia.
Yeah.
Right here.
Um,
Niskayuna, Glenville.
Niskayuna charges $2.60 per 1,000 gallons, and Glenville charges $2.35 per 1,000 gallons.
Yeah. Can you explain why Olean City is so high? It's somewhat disproportionate to the rest of them. They have a spike for some particular reason?
There's no particular reason that we found, or any of the research we did. That was the number that they gave us in the survey, though.
Must just be what they charge, much higher than us.
Anybody want to move to Olean, New York?
No businesses do.
No. Yeah.
It could be where they get their water too, like the survey will tell you if it's surface water, if it's a reservoir, or if they might be purchasing it from somewhere else as well.
I would have been interested if you got information from the town of Guilderland, who is interested in purchasing water from us right now. They currently purchase water from the city of Albany, and it comes from the Watervliet Reservoir that has to be treated after that, so it's very expensive importation of water. So I think they pay an awful lot of money about doing that. So they're looking to areas like us to supply them with water at a much cheaper rate, which we could sell at a profit also.
They're the third one over, Gilderman.
It's 500
Okay.
per unit.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Look at the residential.
Level.
Residential is same. Yeah.
Yep.
When do they want to run water? Are we-
You know, just a thought.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. My only concern with that is if we do set that up, we'll sell them water.
Thank you again, Shaolin High School, for your excellent presentation, and thank you, Ms. Ryder, for providing the excellent guidance to these students to be able to get This professional presentation as I have seen anyone produce. I'm warmed by the presentation and could only think what it would cost us if we had to pay for that. So thank you again. We're going to move on to public hearings. Madam Clerk, please read.
Request by SI Group, Inc. for the relocation and installation of a regenerative thermal oxidizer, RTO, on a plus-minus 60-acre parcel of property located in the Aquifer Overlay District, AO. This property tax map numbers 20.3-5.11 and 20.3-5.12 is located at 1000 Main Street, Schenectady, New York, 12301. I don't have anybody for the public hearing except the last person. I can't read what it says and I can't read the name. Can you?
I'm guessing it's the gentleman with the chart.
Is there a last out? Are you here for SI? There you go. Thanks. And what is your?
There's an easel on the other side of. Oh, there is. Jason Capel, Kappel. I'm actually with Spec Consulting.
Okay. But is there a Bruce?
I'm sorry?
Is there a Bruce here?
Bruce, I'm not familiar with Bruce. I'm here with.
Somebody, 125 Wolf Road?
It's not with our group, sir.
Okay, thanks. You can-
Welcome. Jason Capel, Spec Consulting. I'm here with Pat Kilpatrick and Ken Hughes from SI Group. We submitted an application to the Town of Rotterdam Planning Board in December of 2014 seeking site plan approval for the installation of an RTO, or a regenerative thermal oxidizer. This is a replacement of an existing RTO. An RTO is an emission control device which helps SI Group maintain and meet their New York State DEC air permit thresholds. The existing RTO had an operational upset in October of 2012. SI has been running on an alternative emission technology since that time. In conversations with the DEC and looking at the operation of the existing treatment system, the replacement of the RTO was a project that was deemed as a step forward for SI. I have a couple of boards I could walk the town board through and show you where we are in the site. Can everybody see this, or do I need to move it? The first board is SI site in general. Everybody is familiar where this is. I'm going to point to the board. The location of the new RTO is in this general facility. The main infrastructure is here. There's an existing building that you'll see in the application, Building 939. We're taking that RTO, or we're taking process gases from that building and routing them through the new RTO. There's a ductwork system, or a piping system, which will take the emission gases over to the RTO, where they will be treated in the RTO system. The second board I'd like to show you is a focus or a blow-up of the area. We have the area of disturbance outlined, we have the location of the RTO, and it's basically the same map, just a scale that's easier to see the location. The other drawings that we have are just some elevation views of the equipment. There's a control building. We have the exhaust stack. And then on the other side is just elevation view of the piping, taking us from building 939 over to the new RTO location. We're zoned heavy industrial. We are in the aquifer overlay. We meet the location and the height of the infrastructure meets all bulk schedule requirements. We're seeking no variances in terms of setbacks. And the installation and the equipment will be out of the floodplain. So we presented this to the planning board in December. We came back to, we were in front of your board as well, where we discussed the aquifer overlay. A colleague of mine was here that night. And then we are back in front of you at this point to move forward, hopefully.
Can I ask some questions?
Sure.
All right, can you put up the first board that you had up, which was the layout of the...
This is the site in general?
Yes, the
Okay.
site in general.
Yes.
All right. It's my understanding that your original section was somewhere, your oxidizer was over in this area. And it's-
Building 939, yes.
Okay, right. And this area, just for clarification, what is this big, white, empty area under the compass rose? Is that the Mohawk River?
That's the Mohawk River, correct.
Okay. And we're gonna be putting your oxidizer now over in this various area?
No, over here, sir, over here.
You're putting it over there now?
Yes, yep. Well, that's where we've always had. This is the original location.
Okay, so we're putting the oxidizer closer to, is this still the Mohawk River right
Yes, it
here?
is. Yep.
All right. And the idea of the oxidizer is there is heated gas that ends up going up into the air, right? But the oxidizer also pulls some heat out of the gas to use it for processes down the road to save on energy, correct?
Well, we preheat the gas streams as they come in. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. But you use the heat that would be escaping from the oxidizer to heat other processes within your plant.
Is that correct?
No. Okay,
I'm
can you
gonna
explain
ask-
that to me?
It only preheats incoming gas.
Okay, all right.
It saves on your natural gas cost.
Okay. Does it end up, does this oxidizer end up reducing the temperature of the emissions that leave the SI group? Yes or no?
Yes, the RTO is about 90-some% thermal efficiency, so for example, we come in maybe 120 degrees, it's heated to the regulatory temperature, and the exit temperature is about 100 degrees higher than the inlet temperature.
Okay, all right, so it actually increases the temperature of the gas that's being let out of the...
Slightly.
Okay, slightly. All right. The fact that we are moving the oxidizer from the central area where it was in the past, closer to the river. Now, when the gas ends up getting discharged, all right, it's at an elevated temperature. Obviously, when it ends up getting in contact with the natural environment at a much cooler temperature, the gas, the temperature drops. And the content of it, right, ends up condensing. Is that true? Are there going to be any droplets or additional droplets of your materials coming out of this oxidizer and finding an increased amount of it within the Mohawk River, which is right next door?
I believe the answer to that is no. We have a 98% destruction efficiency. And when we take that into account, we're not, we have RTOs on the site currently, so we know how they operate. We don't end up with condensation issues that I'm aware of from the existing RTOs. So I'm going to say no, that we don't anticipate that is a scenario that's going to happen on the site.
Okay.
Can I, let me just
Go,
ask one.
yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask, how far, distance-wise, is that now away from the river?
Well, we've shown that on the site plan in the, I'll call it the northerly directions, 408 feet. That would be to the east is 185. To the south, we don't have the river, and then obviously those are just to the property line. So anywhere between 200 and 400 feet.
But you're saying there's no significant condensation whatsoever? When a gas is released into the air, it's gonna condensate.
I mean, the length of this room is probably, I don't know, 60 feet. I mean, you know, you're telling me you're putting this thing within 3 times of this room to the Mohawk River, and none of the things that are coming out of your oxidizer are gonna find their way into our river.
Well, again, I go back to the destruction efficiency. If we were putting significant amounts of emission into the atmosphere, we would not be in compliance with our state-issued air permit.
Let me ask you one more question. Now, you said that the oxidizer is gonna be in this area right here. Now, you said that there's going to be a building which is not immediately adjacent to that, which is generating the substances that you are emitting. How far are those two buildings away from each other?
Well, it's 600 feet.
600 feet,
Correct.
and you are located in the aquifer recharge zone, right?
Yes.
And this pipe would be underground?
No, above ground.
Okay, it's gonna be above ground. All right. Is it going to be checked or maintained in any fashion that the contents of this pipe, right? The contents of this pipe that is going to be going from the building to the oxidizer, right? Can any of these substances escape the pipe and get into our natural water resource?
Well, in operational conditions, that pipe is under a vacuum. So
Okay.
if there were leaks, which we don't anticipate, and they would be designed not to, the
would be sucking
vacuum
in
would
fresh
suck
air.
in as opposed to
Leaking out.
Exactly.
That does make me actually feel a little better.
Okay.
One thing though, now, with that pipe that's gonna be running above ground, do they have any kind of, something that's gonna be built underneath that to catch something if it does? You know, some kind of, structure, like some kind of metal structure, something that's gonna catch anything that would go towards the ground if there was happen to be a leak?
Right, so just to remind us, and I know we're dealing with vapor in that pipe, so we're not dealing with, you know, an 8-inch pipe that's liquid transfer.
Right, but some condensation will
Right, so,
occur.
yeah.
Well, first off, the pipe's actually gonna be steam traced and kept warm. So the intention is to keep the vapors that come from the process at a temperature where they will not condense until it gets to the thermal oxidizer.
Now, once this emission ends up going through the thermal oxidizer, it is released in such a state where when the gas does ultimately condense over the Mohawk River, it is in a commercially reasonable, non-toxic state. Is that accurate?
I think I understand the question, and we will be compliant with our DEC-issued air permit.
Okay.
Any other questions for this group? Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this public hearing? Hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. Now I'm going to move on to the public comment privilege of the floor portion of tonight's meeting. Madam Clerk, would you read the rules of order?
Those members of the public wishing to address the town board will be asked to sign in before the meeting is called to order on the sign-in sheets being provided. Speakers will be called to the podium in the order of their signing in. Persons recognized by the chair to speak during privilege of the floor shall direct his or her comments to the town supervisor as chair of the meeting. Persons granted the privilege of the floor shall first clearly state his or her name and address for the record. Persons so addressing the chair through the use of a prepared written statement shall submit a copy of the same to the town clerk for the purpose of maintaining clear and accurate official minutes of the town board meeting. The purpose of a public hearing and/or privilege of the floor shall be for speakers to express their views, thoughts, and speak freely. Public hearings and privilege of the floor are not meant to commence a dialogue with town board members, as town board will not comment at this time, which is solely for the public to be heard. Each speaker who wishes to address the town board and the public shall have an equal and reasonable opportunity to be heard by the town board and the public. Each speaker will state his or her name and address for the record. Each speaker shall be afforded a maximum of 4 minutes to address the town board in public. Roseanne Montepiro.
Thank you, Supervisor, for, oh, I gotta.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Supervisor Navarro.
Just gotta turn that around, Roseanne. That speaker thing, yeah, just so they can hear you.
I can get awful loud.
That's okay.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Is that on?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to read it so it'll go faster. It is really sad that two people can adversely affect so many residents without caring for those that have supported the town, and specifically the senior center years. This is one of the only things that Rotterdam residents get back for their taxes and their fees. I watched the video of your the January 1st meeting, and over 20 positions had been approved. But yet, this is one essential position you say you are going to eliminate. I'm speaking about the part-time position for the senior center director. Why? The part-time position for director of the center is approximately $19,000 according to that meeting. You will be saving about $6,300 by hiring a new clerk in place of Molly Collins. You will be eliminating a position that will cost the town under $13,000. How can you justify that after all the money that is spent sometimes on frivolous budget items? We are pleading with you, especially when you have someone so well qualified wanting the position. This is the one thing that is being given back to the residents of Rotterdam. But it's not only the seniors. What happens to the organizations that use the center, the summer park and recreation program, or the concerts that everyone enjoys in the parking lot of the senior center? The organizations that meet at the center, there's the art program, American Legion, Disabled American Vets, the CSEA retirees, Rotterdam Girls Softball League, Capital District Child Care, there's a daycare there. If this position is eliminated, we're so afraid that the whole senior center will be over and done with. And it's only a measly $13,000 right now. I really hope you consider it, and we plead with you, us seniors all plead with you, and hopefully you'll reconsider your negative vote on keeping the position. Thank you.
Joe Mealy.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Mealy. I live on 1104 Barber Drive. As of last week, I signed on to your website, and I realized I was one of 28,000 plus Rotterdam residents. Not only that, I'm a senior, and we're 8,000 plus strong. I'm here to support your appointing Molly Collins for the project coordinator of at the senior center. Senior center is a place where we meet, we have different activities, our senior clubs, there's exercise classes, there's arts and craft classes, there's many community groups that hold their meetings and depend on that senior center. If we don't have somebody to lead us, the next step is you'll close it. The building is an old building, it has a lot of problems. There's one person that knows that building inside and out, and that would be Molly Collins. She knows the programs that go on in that building. She greets every person that goes into that building, and they feel comfortable walking into the building and talking to her. They're no stranger to her. She knows the problems of that building. She knows how to get it taken care of. You need continuity to the building. Myself, I thought there was going to be a full complement of the board here tonight, and I was going to abolish it, but I'm still going to give you my opinion. We have a board that doesn't have a clear-cut majority. You people are appointed, or rather, you people are elected by us, 8,000 seniors. We take our right to vote very seriously. Many of our parents, many of us fought in the war for that flag to have the freedom to get up here and say and do as we want. You people are supposed to listen to our wants because we elected you. But you don't. You listen to your party lines. Well, you know what? Party lines isn't going to accomplish anything. If you want to accomplish anything, you have to learn to cooperate with each other. I mean, if you can't cooperate, what are we going to do? We're a laughing stock. Glenville's laughing at us, Schenectady's laughing at us. Why? Because no one will vote to put a majority vote in. Everybody wants to vote on party lines. I think this thing with Molly being appointed, it should be a unanimous vote. There should be no politics in that. There's no politics involved. We're all seniors. Seniors first and last. And like I say, we vote, we appoint you with our vote. We might be senile, we might be old, but believe me, we remember. Thank you.
Roslyn Warlick, 1061 Day Road. Original signed letters were delivered to each of you on Monday, January 26th, and by email yesterday. I am here representing the officers and the board of directors of the Hybrid Civic Association. The letter that I'm going to read now was addressed to Supervisor Baffardi and Deputy Supervisor Calder. On behalf of the officers and board of directors of the Hybrid Civic Association, we respectfully request your affirmative vote in support of the appointment of Miss Molly Collins to the position of Program Coordinator at the Rotterdam Senior Center. Since 2007, Miss Collins has held the position of typist at the Rotterdam Senior Center. In this capacity, Miss Collins has been responsible for the day-to-day operation of the Rotterdam Senior Center on a level that far exceeded her civil service title. She performed these services and duties efficiently, completed them in a timely manner, and with a degree of professionalism that has endeared her to the seniors residents who come to the Rotterdam Senior Center daily. Your support of Ms. Collins' appointment to the position of Program Coordinator will ensure that the summer youth program and the programs and services available to the senior community will not only continue, but will move forward and expand. Thank you for your prompt attention to our request and your affirmative vote on the appointment of Ms. Collins as Program Coordinator at the Rotterdam Senior Center. The following letter is addressed to Mr. Lamore and to Mr. Volano. It is slightly different in nature. On behalf of the officers and board of directors of the Hybrid Civic Association, we respectfully request your affirmative vote in support of the appointment of Molly Collins to the position of Program Coordinator at the Rotterdam Senior Center. As newly elected members of the Rotterdam Town Council, you may not have a working knowledge of the many services and programs available at the center and their importance to the senior residents of Rotterdam. Every municipality within Schenectady County has a thriving senior center, which offers senior citizen activities of interest to them and where they may meet over a cup of coffee and just socialize. An active senior center is the heartbeat of the senior community. The paragraph is the same as I read before, acknowledging Molly's duties and her professionalism. We thank you for your prompt attention to our request and your affirmative vote on the appointment of Ms. Collins as Program Director at the Rotterdam Senior Center. Thank you.
B. DeVito. My name is B. DeVito, and I live at 2544 3rd Avenue, Rotterdam. And I am the newly appointed last year president of the Seniors Association. Now, I have not been in power for very long, just a year, and in that time, I have gotten to know Molly, and before Joanne got appointed temporarily in the Eileen Smith spot, I knew Eileen. And from dealing with both of them, that it takes more than just one person to run the senior center. If you do not appoint Molly as part-time director, that would only leave Joanne Scalacci, and she is a very nice lady, but she is new to the senior center, does not know all the workings, and I do believe if you appoint Molly, Joanne would be a good associate for Molly. I have a petitions here signed by a lot of Rotterdam seniors who cannot come tonight, but they wanted to support Molly. So I'm going to give these to Diane, and you will have them, and to tell you and invite Mr. Villano and Mr. Lamore to come to the senior center. Find out just what we do there. I know Mr. Calder and Mr. Buffardi have been there, but you young gentlemen, I don't believe have been there. And maybe that's a challenge for you that I'm issuing. Come and see us and see just what we do there. Thank you.
Jack Shealy?
Jack Shealy, 99 Stacy Crest Drive, Rotterdam, New York. I have been the past president for 4 years at the senior center, and there is no person that knows that senior center better than Maudley Collins. She's the finest lady in Rotterdam, and she does many, many things far beyond what her job requirements were. Many of the seniors would call me and say, you know, Molly called me last night wanting to know where I've been. I haven't been there in 3 or 4 days. And are you sick? And they would say, yes, they are. And she would say, do you need anything, or do you need to get to a doctor or anything else? And if they did, she'd take care of it. And every member that comes in there speaks very highly of Molly. And as was said before, she knows that building, she knows the programs, and the little dollars that it's going to take to put her on staff and so forth are well worth it. The 8,000 members, seniors that are in Rotterdam, want her there. And please give her your support and vote yes for her tonight. And please, to the 2 new gentlemen, come over and see what we do there. I'm single, I'm a widower, and many, many people I've met that we go there for breakfast or we go there for lunch for the one meal that's cooked and so forth that Pina does in the brass rail is lifeline to people, to the town of Rotterdam and so forth, to our seniors, so forth. So please support Molly and vote yes on her appointment. Thank you.
Patty Minor?
Good evening, Town Board.
My name is Patty Miner. I reside at 2075 Carol Ann Road. My comment tonight is part observation and part question. I watch the local news on a daily basis, and very frequently, a news story is centered around a local mayor or a town head, either sharing with the public something good that he or she is backing or has seen come to fruition in his or her city, town, or community. I also see mayors, town heads on the news promising to work with the people that the area they govern to improve difficult conditions or investigate why some crimes are continuing to happen. Example, the mayor of Troy is adamant about getting to the bottom of the recent rash of fires. The mayor of Albany is hoping to lessen gun violence and shootings in her city. The mayor of Schenectady is ecstatic over his city being awarded a casino. Yet in the entire term in office, I have not seen our town supervisor, Mr. Baffardi, on the news. We had a major water main break. The residents never heard from him as to what caused the break or what measures were being taken to hopefully avoid another major break. He left that task to someone else. As our town supervisor, I feel he should have stepped up to the plate, as do other mayors and town officials. In addition, with our crumbling Rotterdam Square Mall, which has been pretty consistently in the news, on TV, and in the press for many months on end, he has not been visible with any comments or ideas of what he and the board could propose to save the mall. It's not just Macy's closing now. The mall has been failing for many, many months. Other public officials are very visible and very approachable to work with their constituents. That's my observation. My question is not only for me, but I'm sure I'm speaking for all of Rotterdam. Why isn't our town supervisor, Mr. Baffardi, on the news speaking up and fighting for the residents of Rotterdam, for the voters who elected him to make Rotterdam the great place it once was and should be again? Thank you. Yeah, if you don't, no problem, for the record.
Thank you so much. The last one is, I think it's Bruce Baer? Baer? I'm sorry?
I'm not here to speak.
Oh, you're not gonna speak? That's it.
That concludes our public comment privilege of the floor. We'll move on to resolutions. Resolution number 32.15, would the clerk please read?
Appoint Molly Collins of Rotterdam, New York to the position of Project Coordinator, Office of the Aging for the Rotterdam Senior Center, part-time with no employee benefits at an annual salary of $19,120, commencing February 2nd, 2015 through December 31st, 2015.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. First, to address the many comments that were made by the public, I want you to know that I have been to the brass rail. I've been invited by certain seniors to attend. Actually, on at least one occasion, I was invited by a member to eat at the brass rail, and I ended up having lunch with Jack Shealy. So hopefully you can remember that conversation that we had there. So I've been there with you. I have seen the programs. The Senior Center was actually the first department that I went to immediately upon winning my election. I have been given the tours. However, my position is always the same. Voters did elect me. They elected me to do the people's work. The thing that is the most important to the people of the town of Rotterdam are budget issues. Now, we have to work within our budgets. However, I also want to give you, before you shake your heads, I want to give you what you're looking for here. The thing is, we are a divided government. I also heard some concerns that we should start working together. This is a classic opportunity to do that. There is money available in the budget to save this job. Okay? I'm going to make some proposals. I'm going to try to find a way to make this happen. I'm going to be presenting some motions to the board. And if the motions end up carrying, and the thing is, I think that they should, and I think when people hear the offerings that I'm going to make, I'm pretty sure that the residents of the town of Rotterdam could get behind it. First and foremost, there's a couple of budget lines that can no longer be utilized. There are not contracts for two consultants individually. Therefore, by eliminating these budget lines, which we've basically set aside money, placed it in a cell that we can no longer use. by eliminating these two budget lines, we can free up money to end up bringing this person on, saving a job, okay? Therefore, as a point of order and to arrange things, you know, Mr. Supervisor, either we can, I intend to present all these things as a package for your consideration. The idea is that we can table the pending resolution, address them, and then bring the resolution back. So, item number 1, there's currently $25,000 in budget line A13154850 for the controller consultant position. I would like to eliminate that for a savings of the town of $25,000. Now the thing is, there's nobody currently in that position. There's no contract. Nobody's losing a job here by eliminating that budget line. Number 2, I am looking to eliminate budget line W583204850 Water District 5 consultant for $13,600. Once again, people of the town of Rotterdam, there is no contract for a consultant that's valid right now for that position. We're able to peel back another $13,600 and make it available. We also have some other money that has recently come into the possession of the town of Rotterdam. I believe that the Curry Road Shopping Plaza has formalized the sale. Is that true, Mr. Supervisor?
That's correct. We
All right.
received a check for $375,000 this week.
No, that is absolutely, after all this time, that's certainly something that should be applauded. I'm happy to hear that that's closed. The thing is, we've got $375,000 there. We have some needs, okay? We have a budget shortfall. We have some retirement costs that we need to patch, particularly in the A-Fund police retirement. We have a significant shortfall there. I'd like to see $275,000 from the sale of the Curry Road Shopping Plaza moved into the budget line, which I think I can give you. Well, it's the budget line for the A-Fund retirement, which we can come up with later when I make my floor motion. And lastly, there needs to be some money for the highway resurfacing. We have a town with over 200 miles worth of roads. 10% of those roads are supposed to be repaired every year. They're supposed to be maintained. Certainly people, you've seen the conditions of a road in this fair town. Our highway superintendent, Larry Lamora, ended up making a request of $400,000 this year to patch up the roads. Sounds like a lot of money, but with the cost of materials, it actually goes very quickly. I understand that diverting $100,000 of the Curry Road Shopping Plaza money to Larry is a mere pittance of what would be required to actually fix up the town. However, I think it's important that he should have some money, because the current budget line that's provided in the highway fund for highway resurfacing is actually zero. There is no money allotted this year for highway resurfacing, DA 5110 4147. I would like to move that money there. If we're spending money that's important for some people in the town, I think it's likewise important that we spend money that's important for everybody else in the town as well. And I think that's a fair compromise. At this point, I've asked Mr. Lamore to come in, and if he was given $100,000 plus his CHIPS money, some of the projects that he might be able to do if that money was ultimately awarded. Mr. Lamore, would you be willing to give us just a very brief statement of the condition of the highway department, what you could do with some money?
Well, what we could do with some money, that's a big wide open spread there. Well, I got elected just over a year now, first time being a town of Rotterdam highway superintendent. I'm a hands-on person, and I have to admit, I learned a lot. Learned quite a bit about how to control the budget, looking into the budget, my expenses. We have a very, very tight budget. $100,000 would help with resurfacing. The government gives me $230,000, I believe was last year, which is CHIPS money, capital highway improvement projects for paving of the streets. That's all I had last year. I used it all up, and I think we only got 5, 6 streets done. And streets as in short dead-end streets, small streets, nothing big. Money goes fast. People know what blacktop and just to do an average driveway is $5,000 today, some more. Imagine doing a street a mile long. Yes, definitely for highway, we could definitely use $100,000. That would go fast, along with the highway department. You know, we have equipment, we have snowplow trucks that are dated back to 1993. We have equipment plowing our streets that are 25 years old also. Haven't had time to get together, but I've been noticing a lot of our equipment. I've been starting to take pictures and writing notes about all individual pieces. I got trucks that are sending people out and rotted out fenders, doors falling off. We got a truck in the water department. We had to weld the back doors shut because they fell off on the guys going on a call for a water main break. I mean, that's a 1995 maybe. I'm saying we have a lot of outdated equipment. There's been replacement schedule that I found in the office. It was imposed before I got in office, and not too much of it's been followed. We have no replacement costs for equipment to come into the highway for 2014, and I don't see any projected for 2015 that we're into today. I'm going to this year, with the knowledge I've created and enjoyed learning here, I'm going to be coming to the town more frequently, talking to the board, and we have to address these problems. Even the staff of the highway department, we had a winter storm last night, day before it started. We have 28 employees on hand. One of them's out due to a disability factor, may be out completely, may not be coming back. We're still waiting for the results on that. Down to 27. When I go out with all the men to plow these streets, I'm finding I need 30 men minimum staffing. And the way I'm doing that now is pulling people from the water department to help me to make this happen.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but wasn't this resolution about Molly Collins, and now we're getting into road plowing and a number of different issues? I think, I let this go on, but I think we're getting far
This is-
astray here from the resolution. I know you made
Well, I'm
an
just
amendment.
explaining what the money issue, how as well it could be used and needed.
This is going to be a collective package, Mr. Supervisor. We will appoint Molly Collins, but we're going to do these other things as well. Okay? It is a package deal. It's called cooperation.
But I'll cut it short. You know, I didn't come up here and make a huge presentation. But yes, the $100,000 would be greatly appreciated. I had a few residents already come in wanting to get their streets paved. I explained to them what I have and what I have to work with. And I'm hoping maybe in the future we can get more and keep the services up for the residents in Rotterdam.
Can I just ask a couple questions as long as
Sure.
you brought this up? Now, you said you had no money for resurfacing when in fact you had $230,000 from the state to do resurfacing last year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so saying there was no money is really inaccurate. There was $230,000 that was spent to do resurfacing in the town of Rotterdam for roads.
Correct.
Okay, so you said a few roads were done, a relatively minor few roads were done compared to the entire need of the town of Rotterdam with the money that we had to do this with, right?
Correct.
Was not one of the roads that was resurfaced the road that you live on?
Absolutely, and I'll admit that.
Okay, so one of the few roads that was paved in the town of Rotterdam that you claim that we had no money for just accidentally happened to be the road that you live on.
One of the few roads, very good point. That was one road, also Chapel Street, that was experimental project that the government gave us an extra $20,000 for winter recovery program. I had to use that money in street pavements. I had a deadline to meet to get that money back to the highway department, which was $20-some thousand. The highway department never on itself ever paved the street by itself. It was always hired out by Gorman Brothers or other outfits, whoever state contracted won the bids or whatever. While scheduling for Gorman to do our streets, to use up the $200,000 that's supposed to supplement the town with the money that, we should have for paving, is provided by the government. Because of the winter recovery program, we were allowed to get an extra $20,000, but this had to be done before August 1st. And so for me to make that happen, I chose 2 experimental streets to get paved by our own highway department without any outside help. Which we did was Chapel Street and Evans Road, a dead-end street that I live on, that was totally disastrous.
How long is Evans Road length?
I don't have actual figures with me, probably 1,500 feet.
1,500 feet. How long is Chapel Street?
Chapel Street, approximately the same amount.
You think Chapel Street is the same size as Evans Road?
Pretty close, it's not that far off. A little bit longer maybe.
Okay.
Chapel Street's not that long, it goes from Chrysler to Hamburg Street.
Right.
Yeah. People go down it. Yeah.
Right. So you chose to pave a dead-end street, Evans Road, the street that you live on. That was the longest road that you paved in the town of Rotterdam, and neglected all the other properties and all the other roads that could have been paved.
One of the shortest
$230,000 of which you said you had no money.
That's the shortest street we had.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Evans Road's a very short
No,
street.
it's not.
What's our short streets? Give me one.
I know.
I mean,
Evans Road was the longest street that
Road.
you paved.
How many?
Evans Road was the longest street that you paved.
Absolutely not.
Oh, I disagree. I disagree. Did you not also pave driveways of people?
No.
Oh, I disagree. Wasn't bills just signed to pay for driveways on Sunrise Boulevard?
Yes, we had a sewer main break that went through the people's front lawns.
So you replaced their entire driveway as a result of
80%
that?
of the driveways were torn out. I brought pictures to Mr. Calder and showed them to him.
Yeah, the bottom 20% was torn out. that you
Absolutely
could've-
not.
No, absolutely not. The town attorney and
Absolutely
myself
not.
actually
I got
walked those
pictures with the
properties.
pipelines, they're going over the people's front
So I find
lawns.
it ironic of this $230,000 that you had, this minimal amount of money that you claim you had enough money to pay private driveways.
That
You had-
money did not come out of
excuse
it.
me, let me finish, you brought this up. You had enough money to pave private driveways outside of the purview and the recommendation of the town attorney that we should have done that. You paved part of a volunteer fire department parking lot, and you paved the personal road that you live on. And now you're complaining that you don't have enough money to do paving. I find that ironic.
That was a water main break in the fire department's parking lot, under the park. Or should I leave a hole there when we're done?
But this town does provide no money to the highway department for resurfacing. The line is A5110 4147. No money was provided to the highway department in 2013.
No money over the $230,000 that the state gave us to pay for.
No money has been provided from the town in 2013, 2014, 2015. Money has to go into our highway resurfacing, okay? I'm only asking for $100,000, all right? The money needs, there are many improvements that need to be made in this town. I think it's a reasonable use of our funds.
If there was reasonable paving to be done, I might agree with that. But if we're gonna start paving our own roads that we live on and private driveways and do all kinds of these extemporaneous things that benefit private people, I don't think it's a good spending of money.
Well,
there's been no privacy done for anybody.
You paved your own road.
Don't you want to get yours done sometime?
Not at the expense of taxpayers. It shouldn't be paid before someone else's is.
You come here by horse or what? People, I have neighbors also. You have neighbors. I'm sure you have some neighbors in your community who would like to get their streets paved.
Okay, I think I've made my point.
All right. So, the one last thing is the job pays $18,500. That's what it paid last year. Although the job is broken up over 4 different budget lines, I am looking to reduce each of those budget lines down to $46,25 for a total of $18,500. If those would be amenable to the supervisor, I can present them as either a single resolution to precede the appointment resolution, or we can do them as 5 separate resolutions in however the town attorney may want me to structure it.
Well, we're still in discussion about resolution number 32.15, so I would like to discuss that issue. Number one, I don't think the money that you're representing here is going to pay for Molly Collins' position. I think that position is already paid for. You're talking about a total of $19,000. We have a $6,000 savings for Joanne Shalaki that comes into the lower rate. And we have the Office of the Aging that offsets the rest of the money. The money for Molly Collins is not at issue here. What's at issue here is you're trying to leverage some other budget lines and some other things to take out of this to try and get the appointment of Molly Collins, which I have put on the agenda, which I recommend, which she is clearly the best person for, which also, I don't know if we're doing her any favors. This is a temporary position until this board reorganizes again on January 1st, 2016. You're talking about an 11-month job with no benefits for under $19,000. I don't know if we're doing her any other favors, and I think any of this other stuff is a guise to try and push through the appointment of Molly Collins in exchange for getting some other things that we haven't really thought out yet. We haven't even, I don't even know if the ink is dry in the check we just got from Curry Road Plaza, and you're willing to spend $100,000 of it, that I don't think we have a good assessment of how that money is going to be spent. Extra $100,000 to pave what roads? To pave what driveways? I think it needs more sense than just saying, well, let's give them $100,000 and you go out and pave some roads. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pave roads, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't use this money for a number of these other expenses. I think clearly, I think the things that you outlined are money savings opportunities that clearly suggest that we can afford to pay for Molly Collins to get this position for $13,000.
I just have something I wanted to say about the situation. I do feel that the savings of the consultants, the two consultants, would open up Molly Collins' job. But one thing Joe made a good point about is she hasn't been in a position and the job paid $18,000 something, and you already want to give her a raise before she ever got in a position. It should be what it was, $18,000 and change.
Jackie, can you tell us the reason for that pay step?
I think it was just a budget increase of the percentage that followed the rest of the lines. So it was just the percentage of
It
the
was just the
increase.
calculation of it
Yeah,
on top of
yeah.
last year with the.
Correct. And what she will be paid would be, it's the annual salary minus the time that she's not there. So it'll be a little less than the
And
19,000.
if she was to get this appointment, she's going to get it for the next 11 months, not
Yes.
for the entire year, right?
Correct.
So it'll be proportionately less than the
Correct.
19,000.
Yes, because you already have someone in that position, so she would be taking over the rest of the time.
You know,
But the problem that I have with that though is, when you propose money raises and everything, it's not for the position, it's for that person. If you have a person in, then yearly they're gonna get their raise. But if there's no one in that position now, they don't automatically get a raise just because the position would have a raise. That's all I'm saying. She should be starting at the 18,000 and change.
Mr. Supervisor, this is how divided government works. We're giving you something that is important to you,
You're not giving
important to the
anything.
taxpayers.
Mr. Valano, you're not giving anything. You're disputing the fact that we're not voting on Molly Collins' appointment tonight. We clearly have the money for this. You're trying to leverage something else here by bringing up this disguised form of government. This is unrealistic. I think we should vote on Molly Collins to find out what your will is, whether we should pay for her.
Well, if you ask for my vote now, you know what the result's going to be. Therefore, let's
I
go
think I knew
back.
what the result was going to be before we did this, and that is
So-
divided government.
So let's go back to, are you willing to make some concessions for this appointment?
No, I'm not willing to make concessions for it. She should be appointed unequivocally based on her qualifications and the fact that we have money in the budget for that. We can discuss at a later time or in the budgeting process how we're going to spend these other resources that we have coming to us. It's not like it's a big windfall. It certainly is money that should be not just spoken about tonight in this forum. It should be gone through a budgeting process. We should do assessments about this. I certainly think that there's roads that should be paved in the town. I would certainly like to have my road paved, but I wouldn't suggest that be paved first. I think there should be a process of how we select roads that should be paved based on need. And this savings of money can be applied in a number of different areas, other than just throwing it to Mr. Lamora to pave roads tonight. I think we have the money, I think I've demonstrated that we have the money to hire Molly Collins tonight.
No hostages.
Okay, well then call for the vote, Mr. Supervisor.
Well, now he's gonna get his way.
Is this the end of discussion?
Well, the thing is, I'm willing to make certain motions, but there's no reason for me to make them.
If this is the end of discussion, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to table this appointment.
We have a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Valano to table this resolution. Do I have a second?
I will second the tabling, but I think it's because we do need to find out more information on the other things. The only thing I would say, the only problem I have with the whole situation is the 19,000 from 18,000. Other than that, because we no longer have to pay for the consultants, I think we have the money through Molly. But I don't think you give a raise to somebody who hasn't even been in a position yet, that's all.
Well then, Mr. Supervisor, if we eliminate the two budget lines and we keep the pay the same, Mr. Lamore will go along with you. I'll go along with Mr. Lamore.
Okay, so is that a motion, that we keep the money the same to amend the previous resolution?
I think you have to withdraw your motion to table if you want to make a motion.
Yeah.
to
I withdraw my motion
The
to
motion
table.
withdraw the tabling. Now, this is going to get confusing for me, so kind of keep me on board here, because I have to think about this. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to amend the salary for the Molly Collins position to the $18,000? $18,500. I will entertain a motion based on that.
I will make a motion to reduce the position for Molly Collins to $18,500, divided between the four budget lines on an annual basis of $4,625. So if she's only there for 11 months, she'll get 11/12 of the 18,500.
But you're throwing the other four budget amendments with that in order to do that.
Correct.
Trying to bury everything.
Well, no, there's, ladies and gentlemen, there are four budget lines. Here, I'll do it formally. Mr. Supervisor, motion number one.
I would just have a point of order. I don't think that's necessary because I think Jackie's from the budget has to take it out.
It just needs to be the overall total. They know the lines to draw from.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So, motion number one is to reduce the pay for that position to 18,500.
Okay, motion number one to reduce the pay to 18,500. Do I have a second on that motion?
I second that.
Seconded by Mr. Lamore. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder's absent. Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Resolution A carries. We still have to vote on the Molly Collins appointment.
Mr. Supervisor. I hereby move to eliminate the budget line A 13154850 Comptroller Consultant from the budget.
Motion number two to eliminate $25,000, I believe you're talking about, for the
Yes.
consultant to the controller position, made by Mr. Valano. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Second by Mr. Lamore. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder's absent. Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries.
Mr. Supervisor, motion number three. I hereby ask and move to eliminate line W 58-320-4850, Water District 5 Consultant, in the amount of $13,600 from the budget.
Motion made by Mr. Valano to eliminate water consultant, $13,600.
I second the motion.
Second by Mr. Lamore. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder's absent. Mr. Bafardi?
Let me explain my vote. I'm going to vote no on this because I want to reserve my position to be able to fortify the issues that we have with water, and I think the Chalmont demonstration tonight speaks loudly to that issue. This does not mean that Mr. Collins has got a blank check to write against the town of Rotterdam. He could be bid out like any other convenience that we would have, that we would put it out to bid. He would have to competitively bid for that position. And should we need him, and I think we do, and I think the Chalmont presentation actively supports that, we could hire him on an as-needed basis, providing he came in line with the other quotes that we would receive on that project. So I vote no.
2 yes, 1 no.
That resolution does not carry.
Mr. Supervisor, is it my understanding that the town of Rotterdam will not issue any funds for work provided from January 1st until December 31st of this year without prior authorization of this board?
Correct.
And no money has been utilized off of that line from January 1st until today, and there are no outstanding purchase orders or any other expenses that I can expect to come off of that line at this time?
I'm going to say I believe that to be correct. I don't know if there's any outstanding purchase orders along that line. Jackie, could you help me with that?
Water 5, it would have no purchase orders, it's a salary line.
Right.
A salary line would not contain a purchase order at this point in time, they're only done against .2s and .4s.
It's not really a salary though, because it's an out.
There's a consultant, but the consultant doesn't, the consultant is considered a salary, we don't usually purchase orders.
The point I was trying to make is I think we need that consultant money, given the projects that we're anticipating we're going to have to do with water. That's why I voted no against that, particular position. I think water is critical. I think it was best demonstrated by the Chalmont presentation that we heard tonight. And it's certainly been an issue that came to the forefront in 2014 when we ran out of water in the town of Rotterdam.
But, okay, so I want to end on this though. So we are not anticipating Mr. Collins to be receiving any money off of that line without prior authorization of the board?
Without prior authorization, no. But it would go through a bidding process. It would have to be authorized for a bid like anyone else. If he comes in within the proper lines of the bid, we would attempt to hire him.
I'm not saying he can't reapply. I'm just saying that as of right now, there is no pending
It would
contract.
go through our pending bidding process.
Very good. I'm fine with that then. Therefore, I ask you to bring back the motion 3215 to appoint Molly Collins at the new rate of pay.
I have a motion made by Mr. Villano for 3215. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
This is with the, this includes the amendment with the 18.5, correct?
Correct.
Amended pay rate.
Motion made by Mr. Villano, seconded by Mr. Lemore. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder's absent. Mr. Bafardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution number 3.15, will the clerk please read?
Adopt the Town of Rotterdam Housing Choice Voucher PHA 5-year plan from 2015 to 2019. Public hearing called for at the Town Board meeting of October 8, 2014. Public hearing held at the Town Board meeting of December 10, 2014.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Villano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lemore, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bafardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 34.15, will the clerk please read?
Amend resolution number 15.15 adopted on January 1st, 2015 to authorize the utilization of specific engineering firms to act as town designated engineers, TDE, to include CT Mail Associates, 50 Century Hill Drive, Latham, New York, 12110.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Villano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bafardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 35.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize the issuance of a request for proposal to be received no later than 3 p.m. on Wednesday, February 18th, 2015 for engineering services for the design, bid, and construction of water system improvements.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I would just want to make note that we are supposed to be getting some kind of money from somewhere else for this project.
New York Rising, yes.
New York Rising, all right. But I also wanted to have somewhere noted in the resolution that if the resolution costs us more than we're getting from New York Rising, that we use whatever money else we need for that, we bond that money.
I think we could include that in a future resolution.
This is just for phase 2.
I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay, no, understood. I
No.
think we discussed it clearly during the agenda session.
No, and you know, I like the idea, we'll send it out for a bid, we'll find out how much these projects cost, we'll figure out exactly what our grant is, because that's not set in stone, is that correct?
That's
Mr.
correct. It's somewhere between 500,000 and 750,000. We don't know what the cost of the whole project is going to be yet.
And then once we find out what the difference is, we can address how we're gonna pay for it.
I can suggest this also. If we're going to bond something that requires a supermajority of the board, so it will require all 4 of us to vote along those lines. I'm not opposed to bonding. I think bonding oftentimes saves a lot of money, and I think that would be a true example of shared governance if we can come together on a bonding-related issue. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not opposed to the bonding issue.
Okay, I also want to look at some other water projects. If we're going to bond, I want to collectively bond things. You know, because the cost of bonding $1 million, as computed by Miss Avery about 6 months ago, is about $7 per household over the course of the 20-year bond. Whereas your current water rent ended up hiking from $25 to $75. It's a $50 hike. We can get far more bang for our annual buck. And the $7 per million rate actually decreases over the life of the bond. So you wouldn't pay that extra 50 every year, 50 every year, 50 every year. It would be 7.1, 7.0, 6.8, and so far as it falls over the course of the bond. I really think it's an opportunity for shared government here, and possibly even an opportunity to save our taxpayers some money by eliminating the water rent hike.
Well, I would suggest that from tonight's presentation from the Chalmont students that our water rates are well below those of most places within the state. That being said, I also think they brought up some other interesting concepts that we should consider collectively to give a thoughtful process of how we can best serve the residents of the town of Rotterdam. That might include reducing rates, it might include metering, it might include a number of different things that the Chalmont students actually brought to the forefront tonight. And again, thank you, Chalmont students, for your presentation.
Yeah, I also think that that was a very good presentation. And I think that we should look into the testing that they were talking about. I think we should look into it because we do have a lot of old infrastructure. And you can't just go and replace it here and there. You gotta wait until the problems happen. And then when you're trying to replace it, you're trying to do a rush job instead of being able to do a really good job so you don't have that problem again for years. Where if we know where the problems are, if it's not gonna cost us too much, so that we can know where the problems are, that can make a big difference. So I really like the presentation, and hopefully we can find a way to see, find out more information and see what we can do to try to make things better for the residents.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 36.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize the town to accept an easement from Edward and Joyce Griesmer, 1 VO Street, Hadley, New York, 12835, in a manner acceptable to the town attorney and the town of Rotterdam Highway Superintendent.
Is there any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lamore, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 37.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize the supervisor to sign all necessary documents to accept and execute the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation Engineering Planning Grant Agreement.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lamore, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 38.15, will the clerk please read?
Declare the town of Rotterdam as lead agency and authorize the town planner to prepare, file, publish, and distribute all documents necessary to comply with 6 NYCRR Part 617 and State Environmental Quality Review relative to the below reference amendment to the code of the town of Rotterdam.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Lamore, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Valano, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 39.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorization and appropriate the local match amount for the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation Engineering Planning Grant Agreement.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Lamore, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Valano, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 40.15, clerk, please read.
Authorize the supervisor to sign the amendment agreement with Mass Mutual Retirement Services as administrator of the Hartford Life Insurance Company, P.O. Box 1583, Hartford, Connecticut, 06114-1583, extending reimbursement coverage for costs associated with the Town of Rotterdam Deferred Compensation Plan for 1 year at the modified terms to town employees to expire November 21st, 2015.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Resolutions number 41.15 and 42.15 were removed in the agenda session and taken off tonight's resolution portion. So we'll move to number 43.15. Will the clerk please read?
Upon the recommendation of the town controller, authorize the establishment of a credit card policy and authorization for town employees as set forth by the New York State Office of the State Controller.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Lamore, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Valano, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 44.15. Will the clerk please read?
Authorize gasoline expenditures from October 1st, 2014 through and including December 31st, 2014 to be transferred into various accounts.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 45.15. Will the clerk please read?
Accept town clerk's report for the month of December 2014.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
3 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 46.15. The clerk please read.
Authorize budget transfers by the town controller to various accounts for 2014.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I noticed in the transfers that we are transferring money from, or into, I should say, the overtime dispatcher line and the overtime police officer line. And the only problem I have, the money, it's 2014's budget, so it's already, the money's already spent. But I just want the people that would be involved with that to know upfront for 2015, we've already transferred money into these lines on numerous occasions this year. Don't expect us to vote for that in 2015. We have budgets for a reason, so that people stay within the budgets. If you just feel you can blow the budget out and just keep asking money to be transferred into your lines, wrong. It can't keep happening. That's why we're in a position we're in right now. So that's fine. Now we're gonna have to live with it, but in the future, it's not gonna happen that way. So you just need to know that. That's all I have to say.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I mean, we have a lot of budget lines in our budget that are blown by 20%, 50%, 70%. I mean, you know, the thing is, I live in the town. It's very easy for me to come in for a special meeting. If it looks like we're, especially now that we're only meeting one time a month, if it looks like, you know, prospectively, we're going to start going over these things, I would rather have us have budget discussions about how we're going to be spending the money of the town rather than being handed a bill after the money's already spent and have absolutely no control over it. I mean, I understand, at least with the dispatchers, it was a very special situation.
Right.
They deliberately try to keep staffing low because of the transition to the county. You know, I think that the process probably took far longer than it really should have. I guess there was some software problems.
We've had many discussions with the chief and deputy chief about that process. But going forward, if it looks like the budget's literally not going to mean anything at all, and we're gonna be coming back to the board after the money's already literally out of our pockets and say retroactively, was this okay? You know, I have to agree with Mr. Lamore, we gotta show a little more restraint. And I am more than willing to come in and discuss those with you in this public setting at any time.
Okay, I don't disagree with either of you, except for the fact that I think you have to understand that sometimes government has to be flexible and elastic. Certainly, particularly with situations like policing, is going to be predicated on crime, the amount of calls we have, weather events are going to determine what highway budgets are going to be. We have to be a little bit flexible in those regards, but I certainly understand the accountability to the public and to the people and to have public meetings regarding expenses. So I agree with that portion of it, as long as you understand the elasticity that has to be attached to it for a governmental point of view.
You know, and I don't want the people to think that there's no money set up on the overtime lines. I mean, on the standard patrol officer overtime line, you know, we've set aside $320,000. I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, if it looks like, well, we've already gone through $280,000, well, you know, maybe at that point we should get together and decide if we're going to allocate some more money, or, you know, how we're going to pay for the bills. I'm not saying that public safety isn't important or highways aren't important. If Larry's department was running out of salt and there was no money in the salt line, you know, let us know. We'll come in and we'll allocate more money. It's just, but to get the bill after the money's already gone, I guess is troublesome. That's all that we're asking, is to participate in the process.
I understand your point, but I hope you understand mine, that sometimes government has to be a little bit flexible when it comes to spending of money. That we wind up apportioning out money for need or urgent need, and then we're gonna have to come back to you at a later time at that point. Well, we could even set up a policy where we could do it over a series of phone calls. If we're running into a budgetary expense, I wouldn't mind doing that either.
You know, I wouldn't mind doing that. Seriously.
All right, that makes sense to me.
All right.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion?
I make the motion.
Which one are we on, 4 or 5?
46.
4615. Motion made by Mr. Lamore on 4615. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Grudgingly, yes.
Mr. Bavardi?
Ungrudgingly, yes.
3 yes.
Number 47.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize budget transfers by the town controller to various accounts for 2015.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
3 yes.
That concludes tonight's resolution portion of the meeting. We'll move on to committee reports. Does anyone have anything under committee reports? Moving on to miscellaneous. Does anyone have anything under miscellaneous? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, seconded by?
I'll second.
Mr. Lamore, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.